Alright, Big Wolf on Campus, Season 2, Episode 8. Imaginary Fiend. This episode features the only appearance of a character named Vince that I wish was on in more episodes, honestly. So, Tommy's helped Merton move this chest of old stuff he had when he was a kid. He's going to give some of it away to charity for kids in need. This is where he starts reminiscing. He finds the board game clue, starts reminiscing about how he and Vince used to play, and that's when it was revealed that Merton had an imaginary friend when he was a kid, when he was 8 years old, which they say is 10 years earlier, so it means Merton is 18. He says it's been 10 years ago I put away my, and decided to be a man. Of course, I was 8, but so he's 18 here. The continuity is really weird anyway. Yes, and we see that Vince is coming out of the box. Now, Vince is one of my favorite antagonists of Big Wolf on Campus. He's played by Jeff Douglas, who I know was Cubby from the famous Jet Jackson and Professor Z on Strange Days of Blake Halsey High, and he's fantastic in everything I've seen him in, and he is great as Vince. He often quotes Clue, "It's Vince in a lair with a lead pipe." You know, Vince in the cafeteria with a spork. I should have said lead pipe, but a noose is something. There's a noose mentioned. I'm looking at my beard. It's really weird because it's like blonde and gray and then reddish in the middle. It's very interesting. And it's blonde here, blonde and gray on the side. Anyway, back to the episode of Not My Beard. I have ADHD, so distractions abound with me. Merton tries to... meanwhile, I should mention before I get into that, Tommy and Lori are going to go on their first date. And I say date because, Lori asked him if he wants to do something in the graveyard, in the cemetery, whatever. So, yes. And when he gets there, he's all dressed up. He's got flowers. This is the one scene that doesn't make me cringe, but it just makes me kind of roll my eyes because he's trying to cover up for the fact that he thought it was a date. He's like, "Oh no, these flowers are for you. They're for this John Rusk here," which is this a headstone that says Rusk. Good old Johnny. Rest in peace. I'm just like, little weak. And she brought him there because she wants to fight bad guys. That's not how it works, woman. You can't just, let's go out and fight bad guys. Bad guys have to appear. She's new at this, so I'll give her a break on it, but I don't understand what she thought was going to happen, but, so he asked, she's like, "I'm sorry, you clearly thought this was a date." And he goes, "Well, if I did ask you on a date, what would you say?" And she says, "Well, I would probably say," Merton comes running in yelling no. Now, in the meantime, on the other side of this, Merton has tried to get rid of Vince by saying, "You were my imaginary friend, but I grew up, I don't need you anymore." And Vince is like, maybe Vince doesn't need you anymore. Maybe Vince should take care of Tommy. So Vince goes to take out Tommy, but of course, no one can see him. I will point out a funny episode that gets me laughing. No one can see Vince, so it's all like Merton is talking to no one there, or he's doing this and there's no one there. He's like, "No." And Tommy walks up. And then there's a scene where Vince has him in a full Mount Nelson, is moving around. But then the point of view of the people, he's just going. And I don't know how they did it, how they had him, if they had him to a harness or something, but it looks like someone's holding him and going like this. It's kind of funny. Vince is out to get Tommy because Merton has grown up and has real friends now. He has a candlestick. Merton tries to stop him, but, Vince makes him hit Tommy with it. So it looks like Merton hit him with the candlestick in a fit of jealous rage, but it's not what's happening. They don't believe him. So Lori communicates to Tommy and says, actually, I was going to say yes. So they decide to kick back with some Chinese food and Jackie Chan movies. So they're gonna try to actually have a date, but Vince has an ultimatum. He accidentally shoots Martin with his crossbow, but this is where he really tells him, "Hey, I'm done. I don't need you anymore completely." And he's like, "Well," and I think this is actually the part. Actually, I was confused. He said he grew up, so he's going after Tommy, and now he's saying he doesn't need him anymore. And so now this is where he says, "Well, maybe Vince doesn't need you anymore." So he tells him, "Hey, we're gonna play a very dark game of hide and seek where I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to hide. If I find you, you're going in the box for 10 years." Which I think is just gonna kill him. So Merton once again shows up in the house, and before this happens, actually it's during this part, Merton shows up. So you have Tommy and Lori watching TV, the regular TV, while Dean has headphones and a little TV. Alright, so Merton comes in and starts talking about this stuff. His imaginary friend's trying to attack him. I don't believe me, but look, Vince shot me with my own crossbow. What are you explaining? He goes, yeah. They go, something, cut it on a nail, is what Dean says. And when Dean goes like this, something clicked in my head here in this scene. It didn't click in my head until this episode. But in 8 episodes, the 8th episode of season 2, in all the 8 episodes, the parents have not shown up once. Tommy's parents have not shown up once. And they were in almost every episode of season 1. Within it, like 2 or 3 of them they weren't in, but most of the episodes they were in. I don't think Tommy's parents show up for the rest of this series. I think they were only in season 1. There's no mention of Tommy's mom on the news anymore. There's no, "Hey, look, my mom." There's none of that. There's no mention of the mayor or anything. There's nothing. I think that was only in season 1. I don't know why I never caught that before, but I do now. And this scene where they're sitting there and Dean's there watching his own thing and sitting there and made me think of, oh yeah, I am hanging out with Dean, and it's like, yeah, it's just them. They kept Dean, which is cool because I love Dean. Reminds me of myself, although I'm not that obsessed with TV. I get out every once in a while, you know. But, yeah. You know, so they go to the school, right? Sans Dean, he stays behind, but hold on a minute. How about my nose? There don't have tissues here. They go in the bedroom and get one. Anyway, so they go to the school and they find the box and they say, okay, we're gonna lure Vince, put him back in the box, and that'll be it. Vince shows up, ready for playtime. It's time hide and seek. It's time, to seek him. He's gonna get him. And so this is where Vince fucks up, in my opinion. So Tommy and Lori can't see him. They have no idea where he is. And Merton's still trying to convince him, hey, he's right there. He's right there. You can't see him because you don't believe in him. And then what does Vince do? He punches Tommy in the gut, causing him to wolf out. Excuse me. And so I'm like, wait, Vince, if you didn't do that, you would have been able to get Merton. Well, now that he hit Tommy, Tommy can see him. And somehow, so can Lori. She's like, if it's any concern, it's I can see him too. And I'm like, how can you see him though? He didn't hit you, he hit Tommy. And all you saw was Tommy go, ugh, and you can just now see him. There were other people who saw Merton dancing around, being pulled around and danced around and talking to no one. Yet they couldn't see Vince after that. Yet you see Tommy get punched in the stomach and you just believe? I guess it would work, but I don't know. It's very sketchy. But Vince is very strong and he has plasma volts, which we did not find out till now. But that's not bolts, whatever. So he's too strong for Tommy and Lori, so Merton tricks him and says, how about we play a game of Clue? He's like, I'm always up for playtime, little buddy. It's good to have an imaginary friend, but it's better to have real friends. Vince, I don't believe in you anymore, Vince. And so they both kick him into the trunk and shut it, and Merton's like, I'm going to go get a padlock for this, because he starts to freak out. We find out Merton never did get a padlock, so Vince got out, but for some reason, Vince just moved on to another kid. Okay. I don't know how that works. He just moved on to another kid. And he was obsessed with murder, but now he's just gonna move on. Again, much like before with the was it the Doctor Apocalypse stuff, where technically they didn't actually win anything. I don't know. Just finish up the episode, I guess. But this was always a favorite of mine. I love Vince. I love Jeff Douglas as Vince. He's fantastic. Shame he never came back for a bonus episode. Like I said, they could have done something. This big villain. They need to rely on other villains like Butch and the Sandman and the Librarian Lady and Vince to help fight. You know what I mean? And of course, they could get a couple of fighters from Fong, who we meet in season 3, and I will. Oh, I help you. You'll have my newest champion. You know, that sort of thing. We'll talk more about Fong in season 3, although I may mention a couple more times during this season, but you know. Yeah, this is a fun episode, so I'm going to keep going, so on to the next one.